In the year 2010, the association that founded the Royal Tropical Institute will celebrate its first centennial. And the KIT, as we abbreviate our name in Dutch, has been called to life and is still today a knowledge center in the field of international cooperation and dialogue. During the last 10 years, the permanent exhibitions once again underwent a profound metamorphosis. The focus went back to the rich collections, at the same time still being presented in a contextual manner. We are proud of what has been achieved in the Tropenmuseum. And we like to show and to explain to you today from where we came and where we stand now. Even more, we would like to hear your analysis, your comments, your criticism. This meeting is also meant to hear and share thoughts with you about how to proceed. The finalizing of a renewal, in fact, marks at the same time the starting point for the next debate. How to continue the work? How do our exhibitions? How does our research? How does our organization have to develop in order to still be present and worthwhile in the next decade? In a minute from now, I will leave the floor to our keynote speaker, Professor Suzanne Legêne. But I like to stress here that Suzanne was, until early 2008, the head of our curatorial department and the great inspirator of the process that we are discussing here today and tomorrow. She left us to serve the academic community of the Vrije Universiteit.
I will present a story about the refurbishment of the Tropenmuseum and its results, which we are discussing today. I will summarize the deliberations and decisions behind the refurbishment of the museum and why the museum now stands as it does. Even those established museums today that close their doors and that reopen them after some years with a renovated building and with a complete makeover of their permanent exhibitions, even such museums do not make a new start. For that, the institutional background of our museums and their place in the cultural landscape of the Dutch nation is too strong. I will not discuss current museum developments in general, but instead focus on the Tropenmuseum, and in the following I will give a brief overview of the history of the museum and the process approach of the refurbishment of the semi-permanent galleries, and my argument elaborates on 6 statements. The first is concerned with transnationalism. I will argue that the Tropenmuseum, throughout its history and within ever-changing political coordinates, has provided transnationalism in Dutch society with a voice, with authoritative images and with lasting material forms of representation in contact with communities abroad, for better and for worse. Concerning process and product, I want to state that the museum as process approach to the renewal of the semi-permanent exhibitions has provided the museum as a whole with a peculiar quality. And then, on past exhibition practices, I would like to stress that the critical evaluation of collecting and exhibition practices of the past has been essential to the renewal of the museum. The most important question that we had to answer in this respect has been who speaks for whom and with what means. And I will explain that in order to address this question, the predominantly regional focus of the museum proved to be a vital starting point for change of the existing ethnographic canon. And finally, in the last section of my talk, I will state that the museum cannot just select its audiences according to its own choice and preference. The visitors have to understand what the museum wants to tell and why these stories matter. Let me just end with briefly introducing the various exhibition themes before you go and see it yourself. On the first floor, you will find the exhibition called Eastward Bound. It's a quote from Louis Couperus, famous Dutch writer. And it has a display of the core collections of the museum related to the art and cultures of South and Southeast Asia and Oceania. The textiles exhibition deals with the notion of authenticity and hybridity. And this theme recurs in the exhibition on Southeast Asia. Both exhibitions approach this theme in a diachronic way. Historical collections and contemporary objects are combined, and in the temporary exhibition program of the museum, as was the case in The Beat Goes On or 24 Hours Indonesia, in these temporary exhibitions, contemporary culture is emphasized, and the museum is especially interested in how contemporary culture connects to the historical collections. The exhibition on New Guinea on the first floor places the collections of the museum in the art historical context of the time of their acquisition. The exhibition Round and About India has chosen the perspective of present-day India and how objects and people, from two sides you can enter the exhibition, the object side, the people side, travel through time and space with their stories. On this colonialism, concerning the display strategies of the past, we decided to create one place in the museum where the history of collecting as such should be told. So in this colonial theater, instead of the ethnic types that surrounded the Queen's throne, we made a display of some historical archetypes of people who themselves contributed to the very creation of these images of otherness. In this section of the museum, their stories are being told, not about others, but about themselves, in their relationship to these others. And as founders of the museum, they also speak for the museum about the past of its collections. It is just one illustration of our approach to the historical aspects of collection histories, in which we try to challenge past notions of authenticity and tradition, of representation and self-presentation, that are so deeply rooted in this ethnographic practice. The exhibition on North Africa and the Middle East focuses on the many relationships between these regions and Western society through science, religion, culture, and history. The exhibition on Latin America combines a historical with a cultural perspective and histories related to pre-colonial times, to legacies of colonialism, to the position of First Nation people and Afro-American legacies of slave trade, slavery, and indentured labor, are presented both with historical objects and with reference to contemporary culture. The Africa exhibition, in a way, also relates to this former 1970s display tradition in its intention to create a representation of African art and culture that does not ignore the problems that exist in many places in the African continent. Two other exhibitions are part of the semi-permanent displays. And one educational exhibition on men and environment, and the exhibition on intangible heritage called Traveling Tales. In that respect, the exhibition Traveling Tales, that has been developed in close interaction with the exhibition approach of the TM Junior program, starts from the opposite point. It invites and allows the visitors to do what they would like, lay down and sleep, date and lounge, play and compete, or just sit down and listen to stories. What I hope that you will recognize in the various exhibitions, however, is that the museum, through both the regional and thematic exhibitions, has been working on new views concerning the relationship between ethnography and art, concerning the meaning of the concept of popular art and the relationship between intangible heritage and museum collections.
Thank you very, very much, Suzanne, for your exquisite elucidation of what has happened in the museum in the past years and even centuries.